Okay, we're up to a new parak, and it's a bit of a continuation of the old parak, right? So in the old parak we left off with the machlokas between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, and this is basically a continuation. I'd like to begin the Mishnah, and we'll go review the parak when it's appropriate in the Gemara. So we've been dealing with the case of a man who gets married, and it gives 200 zuz to a basula. It's about $10,000, by the way, guys. 200 zuz is about $10,000. A ksuba bisman hazeh, when people get divorced, it costs you off the top $10,000. So it's not a small sum of money. And we had the whole Gemara by questioning whether she wasn't, what happened to her, whether she was a mukaseis or she was an anusa, and the koyach hatayna. So here you have the case. So isha shenis almala, a woman that became a widow. She was divorced. So now this is not speaking about going in, this is speaking about going out. Good? So she's two ways to collect the ksuba is with the death of a husband or gerushin. And here Imeres besula nisasani. I was a besula when I got married. And obviously there's no ksuba now written. The easiest way to go ahead and prove this would be with the ksuba. You have the ksuba written for a besula for 200 zuz, but obviously the ksuba is not here. And I married an almana, and it's only 100. So the question is that 100 sus. If there's eidim that she went out with a what's that called? A veil. It seems that they had special. The Gemara is going to discuss it. I believe it's a type of veil that the kalas would wear. For Roisha Perua, Rashi says, and a hair would be cascading to her shoulders. In other words, there was a certain look that the Pesula had. So she has Eidim. Now, obviously, you don't have the Ksuba, but Eidim who were present at the wedding that can testify that she looked, so that she had the Simonim, the external Simonim of a Pesula that gets married, such as this Hinuma and the hair cascading down. Then it would be 200. Rabbi Yochanan Broikaimer, Af Chili Kaloyas, and other proof that it would have been a wedding of a Pesula was the dividing up of Kloyas. Kloyas, Rashi brings, it was like Cracker Jacks. It seemed to be like parched, some type of parched wheat that was, they would give out to the kiddies. Raya, that would also be Raya. So if you have
Boaz, that's what Boaz gave Rus, no?
What?
Isn't that what Boaz gave Rus?
He gave us some type of, I don't know. But again, we've had this parched. This is by the Omer we had at Koli B'Carmel. Anyway, l'cholapachas. This is if that seems to have been something that they would go ahead and hand out at the wedding of a besula, and we were saying that also would be what. In other words, this is a shtickle bigger raya because the first two are rayas in the woman herself. She's wearing a veil; her hair is going down. Here is an external raya that has nothing to do with the woman, right? Even just having notice what was giving out, the little treats that were given out. Umayda Rabbi Yeshua, and now very funny. Umayda Rabbi Yeshua. Now Rabbi Yeshua wasn't who was speaking until now. Usually you say I have machlokas between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, and Umayda Rabbi Yeshua. No one was speaking till now. That Rabbi Yeshua pipes up. Umayda Rabbi Yeshua. So the Gemara has to explain this, right? Umayda Rabbi Yeshua. This field was your father's. When I purchased from him, that he would say Shunem when he's believed. You know why? Says the Mishnah, Shehapesha Asar, Hu Hapesha Hitter. The pet that asses is the pet that matters. The pet that asses is the pet that matters. In other words, until now, we knew nothing about this field. He's muchzik in the field. It's his field. When is the Pesha Asar? This field belonged to your father. So the only way we know it wasn't his was his pet. The same pet that said it belongs to your father, who a Pesha that said I bought it from him. This is a classic Pesha Asar, Pesha. We had this in Yevamis, guys. Yevamis that she went out in the chazak of being zakik to Yibum. She said she had a child, and then the child died. She's believed. But Pesha Asar, Pesha. V'im yesh edim shehi shel aviv, and if they're Adam, that it was his father's field, and if he said without proof, he would not be believed. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. So the first part of the Mishnah, a din in Ksuba, the second part of the Mishnah, a statement of Rabbi Yeshua about the purchase of a field. Now, Taima de Ika Adam. The reason that she goes out Bihinuma, the reason she collects 200 is because she went out behinuma. In other words, she would have to prove her point. She would have to prove a point. In other words, saying that when I was married you, I was basula, doesn't seem to be enough, because the Mishnah clearly says, Im yesh eidim sheyotza behinuma, it was eidim that she went out with the simanim of a basula, such as the hinuma, then you be believed. Haleka eidim, bal mehimnin. Now, if there is an edis, then the baal is believed. Again, let's go back to our rule of thumb. You want to go ahead and extort money from somebody. Well, extort's the wrong word. You want to go ahead and claim money from somebody. You want to claim money from somebody. You better bring a raya, because or else we're going to be we're going to take the money and keep it in his rishos. Lema tanan stama like Rabbi Gamliel. Let's say this Mishnah is not like Rabbi Gamliel. Who is Rabbi Gamliel? Well, we met Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel is the one who said, you know what? She says he says you're not a basula. She says you're right, I wasn't, but what? Nasty. I was what? I was a nusa. Someone forced himself upon me after we were married. You believed. So l'chayra, the same thing over here. She claims she was 200. So l'chayra, this Mishnah is not like Rabbi Gamliel. We met Rabbi Gamliel in the first parak. Bari, the Taina of Bari. I was. Your Taina Shema, maybe I wasn't. I believed, right? So l'chayra, our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Gamliel, because he's saying that what? That I was a basula, and you got to prove it. And if you don't prove it, you're not believed. Leimitran stomach like Rabbi Gamliel. Di Rabbi Gamliel Amar ihi mehimna. Says the Gemara, guys, there's a big difference over here. Afilu teim Rabbi Gamliel. Ad kan like Rabbi Gamliel hasam ela bebari v'shema. Aval hacha bari loy amar. Let's go ahead and take the push of the case. Gets married. He says, you're not a basula. She says, you know what? You're right, I'm not. Because nasty. He says, no, afterwards. Beforehand, you were not a basula when I married you. His taina is not a taina of bari. His taina is shema. He has no way of knowing. Obviously, when he went into the marriage with her, he assumed she was a basula. Now that it's going to cost him money, what does he say? No, you lost your basulim before we were married, and it's a mekach tois. And she's saying a taina of bari. No, I married you. I was a basula. An incident happened that I lost my basulim. Her taina is bari. His taina is shema. Says Rabbi Gamliel, you believe. Over here, not one taina is not better than the other. She's saying bari, I was a basula. He's saying bari, you were not. Rabbi Gamliel says bari, then you're gonna have to prove it. Then you want to be Moitzi Mama, you're gonna have to prove it. So even Rabbi Gamliel could be the Tana of a Mishnah. You want to say that he's the Tana of the Mishnah, even Rabbi Gamliel could be what? The Tana of the Mishnah.
This is only with the divorce, not if she's an almana, but she's Tana.
Obviously, almana, Rashi says that it's speaking to the Yarshim. Very good point. Rashi on that I did not do is with speaking about the Yarshim comment.
How would the Yarshim ever be a bari?
What? The same thing the father told him.
Told him.
Ad kam like Rabbi Hasam el bari b'shema avol hacha bari lo yamar. Fred the Gemara ud ka'aryula my ka'aryula. What were you thinking? In other words, the difference is obvious, guys. Right? It's an obvious difference. So what were you thinking when you said the Mishnah can't be like Rabbi Gamliel? It's an obvious difference. It says kivin the roiv noshim besulas nisais. Right? I would think you have a roiv to back her up, because roiv back her up her taina. Because roiv women, when they get married, ki bari v'shema dami, right? Like it's bari v'shema. Okay? So kamash malon not. Okay, so it says the following. Guys, it says the following. We remember we spoke out in the first parak, and I'm going to speak it out now. There were 4 venues of machlokes between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yehuda. The first one was the one we just spoke about now. She says, "Nah, nasty, someone forced himself upon me," and she's timing bari, he's timing shema, and her bari was supported by a migu. Believe me that I was an anusa, and now I'm lusted to a koyin. Migu, I could have taina, I was a mukach eitz. I was hit by a piece of wood and lost my basulim, and I'd be mutter to a koyin. So we spoke out that buttress that supported the bori of Rabbi Gamliel. You had a migu. That was the first case. And even there, Rabbi Yeshua said, no, we don't leave it in your mouth. You go ahead and you keep the money where it is unless you're being a proof. The second case, we said she was a mukas eitz before Erison. I was a mukas eitz before Erison. And here the claim is, are they claiming 200 versus 100 or 100 versus nothing, right? That was the machlokes. But she's claiming mukas eitz. The third case was she was medaberes with a person. We had a machlokes amaroyim between Seiri and Rav Asi. What did medaberes mean? Seiri said it meant yichud. Rav Asi said it meant bia, right? And even in that case, she's believed. And this was not a case of money. This was a case le'inyan that the child would be permitted to marry a kohen, because the father of the child who she was with, she's believed to say, was a kosher v'yasha. He wasn't a mamzer or an eved or a sin. And finally, we had the case where she was actually pregnant, and she still believed. In all those cases, she was believed like Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Yeshua said not. Good. So now, our Mishnah, you would have thought that perhaps she doesn't have to bring a proof, because since she has a roiv backing her up. She has a roiv. What's the roiv? Roiv women, when they get married, are besulais. So maybe that makes her taina stronger taina to be b'bari v'shema. Kamashmalo not. Okay, now hachanami mistabra, to say this pshat. Hachanami mistabra midiktani umoyder Rabbi Yeshua. Hachanami mistabra, to say what pshat, guys? That Rabbi Gamliel is the tana of the Mishnah. Because if Rabbi Gamliel is not the tana of the Mishnah, who is Rabbi Yeshua being moided to? I pointed it out, guys. Look at me, guys. I pointed it out when we did the Mishnah. You have a clause, an anonymous clause, then you have Umoyder Rabbi Yeshua. You want to tie that this anonymous clause is not according to Rabbi Gamliel. Bishleim, if you tell me it's according to Rabbi Gamliel, Umoyder Rabbi Yeshua to Rabbi Gamliel, who argued in the first parak. But if you're going to tell me Rabbi Gamliel is not talking and it doesn't go, and he doesn't go, so who's it being moided to? So very good. Says no, Moida Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Gamliel, the Moida, that Rabbi Gamliel is Moida over here, guys. That what? That she's not believed. Then Shapir. If Rabbi Gamliel is not Moida, but he would argue over here, Rabbi Yeshua Laman Moida. Who is it being Moida to? So obviously, what? It must be that what? So now the Havamina is now the proof that Rabbi Yeshua in the Mishnah in the second parak is going on the clause, the Reisha in the second parak, right? That's Uriah. Umoida Rabbi Yeshua, so it's a proof that Rabbi Gamliel is Moida in the Reisha, that she's not believed without Edim, that she would not be Inuma. And therefore, Rabbi Gamliel is Moida over there that no, she's not believed. And Rabbi Yeshua is Moida over here in the Sefer that she is believed, that by the case of the field that you are believed. That the case of the field that you are believed. Good. So that's what we're saying. Now, says the Gemara, you have no raya. Guys, you know what it's going to say now? Rabbi Yeshua, it's going back in the first parak. That's why I told you it's a continuation. It's going back in the first parak. Says the Gemara, Mi sarvis Rabbi Yeshua a high pirkin koi. Do you really say what? You're going on the pirka? Amigu koi. He's going on migu v'ar pirkin kama koi. And he's going on the parakama. So now the question is, migu, what's the migu over here? The pesha says a migu. Believe me, the field is mine. Migu, I could have said nothing. Believe me, the field belonged to your father and I bought it from him. Migu, I could have said nothing. Good. So he's believed over here. Now, we're going to go through the various cases that I mentioned and say, where is he moida to? Is it the case of Astani, the case of Mukas Eitz, the case of Medaberes, or the case of Muberes? So there's four cases. Actually, those four cases, right? You're going to go back on that. So says the Gemara. Hey, the last case, what's the nature of this child? Who's the father? And she says, Mish point of a kayin, who is a fine fellow, a fine yid. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezo, you told me Rabbi Yeshua is moida with that migu. It can't be that. There's no migu over there. Next. What migu does she have? Her stomach is between her teeth, meaning she's pregnant beyond. Elaha. She sees him that mimiyached. Again, yichud be passing like we slugged up Ravasi. So like that midaberes, imacher with a person. V'amrula mativa shalisha. Who is this guy? Ish poini v'kayin who. Rabbi Gilio Rabbi Lezer Oimim Nemenis Rabbi Shua Oimim Piyana Chayim Hasam Amigu Ika. What migu is there? Now, Hanichel is the Iri who said it's speaking to Omar. My midaberis is nistera stira. Migu di boy Omar loy nevalti. Right? For coming nevalti mehimna. In other words, there's no aidus to the bia. She was behind closed doors. Believe me that I was boiler, a kashadik person. Migu, I could have said I wasn't boiling at all. So there'll be a migu over there. Good. One more time. We had a machlokes what midaberis means. Lights iri midaberis means nistera. Believe me that I was the boiler kashadik guy. Migu, I could have said I wasn't boiling in the first place. After all, there's no aidus to the bia. El Ravasi who says midaberis means bia. There is no migu. The Omar my midaberis neveles my migu ika. The Elaha. Now, I don't understand that kasha so much. We slugged up Ravasi, but whatever. I guess you want to come out l'kuli alma. The Elaha. He Ameris mukas eitzani. She says, before I married you, I was in mukas eitz. For who I meloi kiela there was this issue with a man. At. Rabbi Gilio Rabbi Lezer Oimim Nemenis. Yeshua meloi mi piyana chayim. Hasam amigu ika. Bishlem Rabbi Lezer Damam b'man of leiklum. Bishlem Rabbi Lezer that she's claiming 100. She's claiming 100 because she's only mukas eitz, and he says, "I owe you nothing." Migudi boy yom mukas eitz ani tachticha v'isle mesayim the kamer meikara the less the yalamana mehimna. Okay, I got a migu, guys. Outside. If she gets married as a basula, and when she's married to the guy, that 12-month period, she gets hit with a piece of wood. How much does she get? Right? She was a basula when she got married. Good. What's her taina in the first parak when she says mukas eitz? When I went ahead and I married you, I had lost my besulim already because I was mukas eitz beforehand. Now there's an opinion that a mukas eitz only gets so bishlema, like that opinion one. I got a migu. Believe me, it happened. I was a mukas eitz beforehand. Migu, I could have said it happened afterwards and claimed two. But loitim on the Omer that she's always claiming two, ma'ik lameimar. Says Gemara. Let's see it one more time, guys. Claiming 200, and the leiklum, and he's saying, I owe you nothing. You're claiming 100, and he's saying, I owe you nothing. Migudi boy mukas eitzani tachtich the Islam Masayim. You call me Meikara, the less the Yelamana. She says, no, Meikara, before we got married, I lost my Basulim. Mehimna, she's believed. Why? Because she could have said 200 afterwards. El Rabbi Yochanan, Masayim Umana, that the Machlokes is she was claiming two. And he's saying, I only owe you one. My Migu Ika. So therefore, Rabbi Yeshua obviously cannot be going on those three cases. Ella, aha. Hanoisias the Isha of like Masla Basulim, he I meris Misher Astani. Then Nasti. After I married you, I lost my basulim. Someone was honest me. And it's your bad luck. It happened beforehand. So now you have a migu. Guys, what's the migu? Believe me that I was an anusa. Migu, I could have tied it on mukas eitz. Why is that a migu? As an anusa, I'm also to a kohen. As a mukas eitz, I'm not. So that's what there now. So Ella actually is astich. Rabbi Gilio, Rabbi Lezer Oimim Nemenis. Rabbi Shua Oimim Loimi Piyon V'Chayim. The migu the boy I'm a mukas eitz ani tachtich. She could have said I'm a mukas eitz when I was in Yerushalayim. The loy kapasla nafsha mikahuna. She went to pasla some mikahuna. V'ka'amin and nasti, and she's saying no, I was an anusa. The kapasla nafsha mikahuna. Shemhachi kamra gamliel the mehimna. The kamra Yeshua l'Reb Gamliel. B'hai migu the hacha madin lacha. B'hu migu the hasam palgina lavach. So guys, so now outside. Let's go back to the Mishnah. Go back to our Mishnah. The beginning of the parak. Now, Umayda Rabbi Yeshua, he is not going on that. He's going back to all the way back to Daf Yud Beis Amid Beis. Why does it say Yud Beis Amid Beis, guys? Hanoi says Isha. V'loy matzula b'sulim. He meres mishes astani nenasti. After I married you, someone forced himself upon me. V'nistabcha sedem, it's your bad luck. Fu I'm like kielach later asicha, and it's mekach tois. Having a little bit of mutarim nemenis. You know why they're nemenis, guys? With a migu. What's the migu? Believe me that what I was an anusa, migu, I could have said what? I was a mukas eitz. And then as a mukas eitz, I wouldn't have lost the right to marry a kohen. But now I do. So on that, migu, Rabbi Yeshua is not moida. On that migu, Rabbi Yeshua is not moida. However, back by us, when a guy shows up and says, this field was your father's, and I purchased it from him, that migu I believe you in. That's the way it works. That the first migu on that, I disagree. The migu over here, I believe. Now, what's the difference? Obviously, what's the difference between the miguim, right? But that's the shot. Guys, we're good? We're good, right? Baruch Hashem. Okay, so now, says the Gemara. 1 second. Maishna ha-migu, mehai migu. What's the difference between this migu and that migu? What's the difference? Says Rabbi Yeshua, hacha ein shar shachet lefanecha. The shar is not slaughtered in front of you. Hasam hari shar shachet lefanecha. Okay, let's see Rashi. Says Rashi, Machlekes Rashi and Taisus will go with Rashi. What's the difference? Hacha gabe sada ein shar shachet lefanecha. Sheyala alev bailov l'tvoya mi shachtoi. It will never enter a person's mind to ask who would shecht because there's no shar that's here. Kloimar, we're going to go ahead, guys, and apply this mashal to a field. Im shasak zeh, if the person who had the field in his possession would remain silent, no one would have gone ahead and complained. 1 second, it's mine. He's the one who introduced it in the first place. The shar wasn't here. Hilkach, if not that it was obvious that he purchased it from the father, he never would have said it's the father's. There's no reason to. In other words, there's no, what is a term? Burning, there's no, when evidence, there's no something paper trail, there's no, I don't know, there's a term. Yehuda, you're supposed to be helping.
Smoking gun.
That is the word. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Yehuda, I was surprised.
It's really, what is a smoking gun?
Oh, what is a smoking gun? Okay, anyway. But that's it. No, but there's no smoking gun. It's a great line. It's a beautiful line. Hashar shach lefanecha is the smoking gun. There's no smoking gun here. The guy has a field. No one's saying anything. There's no smoking gun. What about the basula, guys? She's not a basula. That's why you got a smoking gun, and therefore that migu, Rabbi Yeshua says he doesn't believe. That's a very clear distinction between the two. Let's finish Rashi. Hilka chamina and migu. Avagabile matzala basulim shash panecha. There's the shar. The smoking gun is there. Shalom basulim shalom matzah. You didn't find them law. Hey, his sisuha lavay lebezdin. They went ahead and incited him to come to Bezdin. Even though what? She could have said a better taina. She could have said mukas eitzani. Migu. The dilma loy asik adaite. Maybe it never entered her mind to say mukas eitzani. Inami irumi kama arma. Maybe she's just making a trick. In other words, once there's a smoking gun, the migu is off. That's the Rabbi Yeshua's taina. Mashenkin, when there's no smoking gun, such as by the field, shor is not shachal lefanecha. Therefore, you believe. So beautiful. So let's go over what we have so far. We have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if a girl's claiming a ksuba either from her husband or from the yarshim of the husband, claiming she was a basula, and the husband says you weren't, or the yarshim say you weren't, in that case she's not believed. You're gonna have to bring edim that she was a basula. We'll accept this will be accepted to see if, according to the Tanakama, whether she was dressed like a basula with the veil and her hair like a basula, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, even if you had an external, Yochanan broke up, even if you had an external source such as the giving out candies to the kids, right, that would also be accepted. But clearly that you needed to bring proof. We wanted to say it's not like Rabbi Gamliel, because Rabbi Gamliel in the first parak said she's believed, and we said in the first parak she's believed because it's a bari v'shema. Over here it's a bari v'bari. It's a bari v'bari because he's claiming you weren't. He says you were. Why Fred Gemara? What was the Havamina that it's the same as the first parak? And the answer is that since Roiv women who get married are basulois, therefore I would think that it supported her claim and would make her bari a case of bari v'shema. How bari better than his bari? Kamashmal on that, no. And then we just said that the latter part of the Mishnah, Umayda Rabbi Yeshua, that there's a migu that works, and that's the case of what? If a person says this field is your father's and I bought it from him, that migu I believe. However, the migu in the first parak where she said I was an anusa rather than saying a mukas eitz, that he doesn't believe, because the distinction being one, you have a smoking gun, why you don't have a smoking gun? Shacha l'fenecha, ashar not shacha l'fenecha. Let's go weiter. Fred the Gemara, the kivin the roiv nashim besulas nisais, kiloyasa eidem I have. Wait, you're telling me that what? That roiv women are besulas. So the roiv women are besulas, right? So now, why, if we have even if you don't have edim that she went up in behinuma, why doesn't the roiv support her claim? So even without edim, she should be believed. Guys, we just had the sugya yesterday of roiv, correct? We had the whole sugya yesterday of roiv. We said you always go after roiv. So over here, why aren't we going after roiv? Why aren't we going after roiv over here? Why does she have to be edis? If roiv were besulas. Most of the women are besulas and some are almanos. Over here, since there was no koil to a marriage, it goes ahead and weakens the roiv. Obviously, in other words, the roiv is usually a besulas is accompanied by a koil that, again, they're speaking in those days. This is what the norm was, and since there was no koil, obviously. And therefore, it's isru the koil. Says ikol anisis besula yesh lekol ki asa edem I have. Oh, hanach sadi shakri ninu. So 1 second, you're telling me that roiv have a koil, this one doesn't, and that goes ahead and weakens the koil. So why then would you believe edem? If there's no koil, maybe she wasn't a besula. So why you believe edem? El amar avina roiv hanisais besula yesh lekol. Don't say roiv noshim besulais. What do you say? Roiv noshims are besulais, and if you're besula, there's a koil. Mashma that you're saying unequivocally that there wasn't a koil. Again, this is what you're saying. Most women are besulais, and automatically besula has a koil. And since this woman didn't have a koil, memela what? You're not a besula, or you're weakened. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, why even believe? Once there wasn't a koil, it's a statement, you weren't a besula. Oh, so if the Gemara, if that's the case, so why you believe Adam? Elo Amar Ravina, let's go ahead and tweak. Let's tweak the lashon. Listen to the lashon. Elo Ravina, roiv hanoshim besulas yesh lakol. Most of the noshim besulas have a kol. In other words, in the first lashon they all have a koil. In the second lashon, no. The same roiv is applies to the koil as well. Besu hoil v'in lakoil isrulei bruba. So it's not saying a statement that she wasn't a basula. It just breaks the roiv that you need to bring edim. But in Achinami, if edim kam, it would be believed that she was a basula. Okay, now then she's believed. Says the Gemara, "V'leichish dilma mafka edim b'hai beidina, v'gavia v'hoda mafka le'leksuba b'hai beidina." Okay, as a means of introduction, what normally would be the following. This makes sense. You have a ksuba, you get paid off, you get a receipt, you either rip up the ksuba, which is what they do, or get a receipt that the ksuba, we're going to see this later in the Masechta. You get a receipt that it was paid up. The receipt is called a shoiver. Or it was a place where they didn't write a ksuba. Ksuba, guys, is a Tanai Besdin. A girl can't get married unless she has that support. The Besdin makes that Tanai. So even a place they would know not to have a ksuba, that the woman doesn't have to worry about losing it. There's a milo to that, right? She doesn't have a safe deposit box, but she has the security, right? So now, with that in mind, let's begin. Now, she's going to bring out these edim in this bezdin and collect. And then again, she has the ksuba. She said she lost it. Bringing edim in this bezdin, she'll go to another bezdin, produce the ksuba, and collect a double time. So what do you see from here? That koisen is shoiver. It must be that what? That you write a shoiver. By writing a shoiver, what is the guarantee? That you receive the ksuba, so therefore you will not be able to go ahead and produce another bezdin. In other words, we have a fail-safe built in that you're going to write a receipt. Again, this is a shaila in Hilchos Shtaris. We'll see that later on. It's Shailin Chushtar by writing a receipt, because then again, then he has to watch the receipt to make sure. So, Zois we see from here, it must be as that security, or else you'd have to wonder. You aid him here because she lied, saying she lost the ksuba, produces a ksuba somewhere else, and he'd have to pay twice. So it must be that he has what? He has the security of that not collecting again because he has a shayver, a receipt. Rav Papa Amar, no, you know what we're dealing with in our Mishnah? A place where they didn't write a ksuba. Since they didn't write a ksuba, then you don't have to worry about going in and using it again because there isn't anyone. Let's see Rashi. Rav Papa Amar, Lo'ilam ein kaisvin. You don't write a shayver. The nimsa zet sarach lishmar shayvrei min akvarim. Why wouldn't you write it? Because then this guy's gonna have to watch the shayver from all the time from the mice. The mice shouldn't get it because if they do, when she comes to collect again, he won't have a proof that he paid off. Either he gives the shtar back, or he can't produce anything. So if you don't write a ksuba, what's the security? With Saimich on the Tanai of Bezdin, Shetiknu lebesula masayim lamana mana. Bezdin that we saw in the first parak made a takana of 200 and 100. We saw it's machlokes b'shainim. Okay. The lekal lemekish ledilma haja umafkula. Therefore, since there's no ksuba written, you don't have to worry that maybe you're going to produce it. So two possibilities. Either you did write the ksuba and you have a shayver, or you don't write a ksuba. But either way, the Eidim would come. She collects a ksuba, and fartik, there's no reason to think it's going to extend beyond that because there is either a receipt or no ksuba that you can collect with. There's those who go ahead and say, not on our Mishnah, but they say this on a brisa. Now the brisa says openly, if the ksubasa, she lost a ksuba, or hitmina ksubasa, she hit a ksuba, nisva ksubasa, a ksuba got burnt, that's the same thing as ivda, right? Rakdu lefaneha, you see that they danced in front of her. Sakul lefaneha, they made schik in front of her. Heviru lefaneha koishel besura, they brought in front of her a koishel besura. We're going to see what that is. Oimapeshel besulim. In yeshla edim be'echem mikol elu. If you have edim, any one of these things, which is a raya that she was a besula ksuvasa masayim. Fred Gemara on that brisa. V'leichish tilma mafka edim b'hai bezdin v'gavya. That she tiny got burnt by high bezdin the gavya. So in other words, we're going on this price. So Rabbi Vos, I said Meres, Kaisvin Shoiver says that what that you write a Shoiver as he said above, right? Rabbi Papa, Makam Shen Kaisvin Ksuba Skinon. Fred the Gemara. So now the same teretz. 1 second. If the Ksuba Katani. 1 second. You said she what? She lost the Ksuba. But if the Ksuba Katani. You said she lost the ksuba. So how can you tell me it's a place they don't write a ksuba? If a place they don't write a ksuba, there's nothing to lose. The Brisa said you lost the ksuba. So how can a papa say the reason why you're not worried about going in and producing and investing is because why? Because they don't write a ksuba. Obviously they wrote a ksuba over here. Says well, if the ksuba katani says no, the kasav he wrote it. It's the minig is not there, but he happened to write it. So soif mafkul of a gavya. If you wrote it, why aren't you worried that she's going to produce in another bezdin? It says no, my ivda ba'or. She's not producing it because she says it while it was burnt. So once she said it was burnt, if she produces it, she's a liar. Says the Gemara, ihachi hainu nisrafa. 1 and 2 are the same. Again, one of the 3 cases: either lost. Hitmina, she hit it on nisrafa. If you're telling me it was lost in R, then it's the same word as nisrafa. Hitminu mayaklamema. What are you going to say about hitmina? Right? Hitmina means she could hide it and she can produce it. So therefore, the possibility exists for her to reuse it. Says Gemara Vesu, ivda lamali. Then why would you have to say ivda? Ella kol ivda ki hitmina b'feneinu dami. Anytime it says the lashon of ivda, it's like she hid it in front of us. V'lo yavina la ad the army edim nisva ksubasa. And if she says it's lost, we're going to view it as if she hid it in front of us. So it's the same case. Watch. Lost, hitmina, nisrafa. Any woman that claims she lost the kasuba, we're going to view it as she went ahead and hid it in front of us. And therefore she need edim that it's burnt. So it's not 3 different clauses, it's 1 clause. It's 1 clause. And memela, I'm not worried about reproducing the kasuba in another bezdin. Now, man the masli brisa, the one who went ahead and said this is going on the brisa, that Rav and Rabbi Papa were going in the Brisa, Kol Shekain Amas Nisan, then certainly on a Mishnah. In the Brisa, they learned openly Behedya, if the Kesuba Gabe. And Rav Papa is saying on that, right? And we answered, we said that it's speaking where it was burnt. And really, but you don't write a shayver, but you wouldn't write a shayver. So Kol Shekain on our Mishnah, you can learn the machlokes where they didn't say anything about that it was lost at all. Okay, and therefore, so you could say it's speaking in a place we didn't write a ksuba. So therefore, Kol Shekain on Mishnah. The one who says on the machlokes in Papa and is going on the Mishnah, Avla Brisa loy kikushya. Let's look at Rashi. Avla Brisa loy. Loy masni. They didn't learn it on the Brisa. Why? Because certainly you hear over there, you write a shayver. Because what was the inference of my Mishnah? The inference of my Mishnah was, they say meres from here, that we're not worried, it must be right a shayver. So if Bishlema, the Brisa that said Ivda lost in Minos Nisrafa, obviously it must be speaking where it must be that you don't write a ksuba, because you wrote the ksuba, must be speaking where what? So I say meres that you write a shayver to avoid this. But on Mishnah, there's no raya. It could be a place where they wrote a ksuba. If you have a ksuba, then what? The vadai shamina because it's a place that you wrote a ksuba. Since they wrote a ksuba, obviously you're gonna have to write a shayver, and zois meres that you can't say that you don't write a shayver. Says the Gemara Vaita. And yesh edim v'leichish numa mafke edim numa b'hai bezdin b'gavya v'od mafke edim numa b'eidin achmina b'gavya. You go to another bezdin, use the same edim twice. Says the Makan, the Makan lo yevshe v'adei kasvin shayver. In a place where we can't avoid it, we're going to write a shayver. In a place we can't avoid it, we'll write a shayver. Haviru lefana kaisa b'sura. They would going back over to Brisa. They brought in front of a kaisa b'sura. My kaisa b'sura, literally b'sura is of saying good things. B'sura toiva, good news, right? So Amar Adavarava kais yayin shel truma mavin lefaneha. They bring a kais yayin of truma in front of her. Kloimar. She's royalty truma because she's a besula. Maska Lara Papa atu alma man who truma. Almana also can eat truma. A kohen can marry an almana. Ella Amara Papa zu ratius kitruma ratius. Just like truma is the ratius of the separation of tithing your produce, so too this is the first time she was with a man. So that's the raya that is a besula. Again, these are all simone besula. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer chavia shel yayin mavin lefaneha. They would bring a chavia yayin in front of her. Amar Vada Barava, Besula Mavin Lefana, Stuma, Besula, a closed barrel to say she was Sasim. Beula Mavin Lefana, Besucha, they would bring what? They would bring an open barrel. Amai, Fred the Gemara, never Kame Besula, Kame Bula, never cloud. So in other words, what do you do? Both barrels. The Besula, closed barrels. Just like the barrel is closed, so the Besula was closed. Bula, open barrel. Fred the Gemara, why don't you just do the following? Just bring Besula, a barrel, and no barrel at all. So why open close? Just being a barrel and nothing by Almana. And then if there was a barrel of wine there, but she was in Besula. If she wasn't a barrel of wine, then she wasn't Besula. So I read the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Amai, never kame Besula, v'kame Bula loy never. Go bring the barrel in front of the Besula, but nothing in front of what? Cloud. It says, I'll tell you why not. Zimnin the Tafsa Masayim, she'll grab 200. V'amra, I'm not Besula have it. I was a Besula. And that they didn't bring barrel in front of me, as Nusehu Desnisa, they were drunk, right? So they were drunk, and none of this happened, but really it was a Sula. So in Mela, since each one needs one in front of them, you wouldn't have that taina. If only what Basula had the taina, she could lie. But if it's going to be a dafka, an open barrel, a closed barrel, then she won't be able to lie. Wish everyone a good Shabbos.